Thanks for staying with us, everyone. If you're watching What Now, we've been talking about the G20 summit hosted by South Africa this time, historic one for the continent. I will be speaking with Professor Anthony Killer, who is a professor of professional studies, political economics. I just wanted to get that right. And I know he's also works with the Commonwealth Institute. Thank you so much, Professor Killer, for staying with us.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
So just before the break, you started touching on what I want to talk about now, which is the African angle. We saw that a lot of issues that matter to the continent were raised. The South African president used that as an opportunity to raise those issues. And one of them is what our own president talked about, represented by the vice president, that Africa should not be seen from a place of pity, but partnership. And he talked about how the continent should not be seen as a ground for minerals. But our own export is largely raw and extractive, and I'm not sure if that is a problem of the West or if we're the ones who are really not refining our own products.
Well, I think, as we were trying to say earlier on, Africa is in a position now that is not just a dependent dumping ground. Because of immigration and technology, the presence of Africa is really felt. So Africa needs to push its interests, and it has started from this summit, in a way that the global conversation is not talking about or at Africa, but is actually talking to Africa at the moment. So what that means is that the issues that interest Africa, from climate change to security, to economy, to trade, to exploration of natural resources, Africa positions itself in a way, should position in a way in which the conversation is, let's talk, let's talk about partnership, let's talk about how collaboration and how to do things together, not just talking at Africa or about Africa again. That is where Africa is now. And in a way, though people are not happy about the absence of the US, what this has shown us is that Africa can now speak to the whole world, and whoever is not there will be forced to listen. That is what is coming out.
And I like that you said that, because again, I remember, I think it was in Brazil. Was it the G20 summit in Brazil? I'm trying to remember what that summit was, when the president, President Tinubu also talked about the global governance structure and ensuring that that represents fairness and equity. And that issue again was raised at this summit. But one of the issues that was also raised was Sudan, and this is the first time that it is being raised at a G20 summit. I am wondering if we have not been able to, as a continent, deal with our own conflict, and we always need foreign actors to help us handle negotiations and mediation. How then should the world take us seriously, especially when we also go cap in hand for loans around the world?
Well, I think if we go cap in hand now, the idea of going us cap in hand is not going to last for long, let alone forever. It isn't going to be over, because our children, our people are playing major roles, and a lot of things depends now. I think what we need to do is to do our due diligence, to do our duty, to ensure that nobody can look down on us. And the best way, is for government to govern well, and people to continue to be productive and proactive. And we will get the respect. I mean, no matter who you are, if you see a good literature, you're going to appreciate it. No matter what you think about Africa, there's no way you will not respect the literary work of the Wole Soyinka. We need to produce more of that. No matter what you think about Africa, there's no way you will not recognize that Dangote has done the biggest refinery in the world. We just need to do more of such things. That is what is required of us, so that we define ourselves and we don't let other people define us. And when we do that, I believe our desire for the rightful place at any table will come almost automatically.
To go back to the summit itself, and I want to take a comment from, or a statement from French President Emmanuel Macron, where he said the bloc, and I'm just quoting him, he said the bloc is, quote, struggling to have a common standard on geopolitical crisis. Isn't that what makes summits like this more symbolic rather than significant?
Well, I think the idea is to show that these standards are universal and valid. And quite frankly, I believe that we cannot ask for different standards if we want equal treatment. we also have to agree to do the hard work, is what I believe that is necessary.
But some of these nations have competing policies in their own country. For example, President Trump has the America First policy. And so I'm wondering how some of these regulations, some of these resolutions will be binding, especially when you also consider that one of the biggest economies did not make it to that particular summit.
Well, I think, you see, international politics is more about persuasion and interest and less about principle. It is the social condition of countries that determine their policies, not their policies that determine their social condition. If one country decides to go left and the rest of the world is going right, as long as the rest of the world can influence or can make that country realize that they need to go where the world is going to, it is my view that at some point they would bend, compromise, yield, and become flexible. Don't forget that President Trump, when he started, he was talking about very radical, almost unrecognizable things. But when he saw that it's not practicable, he has sort of changed his stance. And, never mind what color he paints it, he has changed his position. That is because you can't just dictate in what politics, no matter how strong you are, especially when it's about trade and relationship. You can't dictate because there'll be repercussions. If he decides America First, I'm not going to. When Trump started, you would think he has no interest in the whole world. But look at him. He's talking about Africa, he's talking about Asia, he's talking about Middle East. So reality forces people, to play a different game.
But it still seems like he's struggling with the idea of multilateralism and a multipolar world. Is he missing out on these alignments that these summits like this could provide?
Well, absolutely. So two things. Number one is that you cannot be the strongest player in the world if you don't play in the world. It doesn't make sense. You can't say, I'm the biggest nation in the world, but I'm not looking at the world. That is a contradiction that cannot stand. You have to play in the world to be able to lead the world. Number two is that you're very right. These alliances matter because if you're not part of it, things will be done against you or without you, and then you're going to play catch up. I think regardless of the rhetoric that is coming from the White House, professional strategists, experts of international relations, and business people will know reality, and they will at some point call the president to order.
But overall, as you look at the developments in the G20 summit, it would seem like one is seeing a level of division, whether between the US and South Africa, or the EU, which were also represented at that summit, and Russia. And can they function with this division, or can they function without the US?
Well, I think what this is showing us, you call it alliance, and you're right, is that a new way is possible, a new way perhaps even without America. And in that way, America will be forced to take cognizance of the presence of Russia, of the presence of China, and to know that if they don't take cognizance of the whole world, they can lose out. And, in a way, because of Russia, because of China, it will soon be clear to America and Europe that Africa has a choice. It will soon be clear to America that Europe might not be aligned easily as they think. As we started, there's a new world order unfolding with, thanks to immigration and technology, that some old nations and old leaders are not aware of. And the earlier they recognize it, the better, because it will affect them. Because even back in their countries, the generations that are there will not reason like they were reasoning 20, 30 years ago anymore.
Professor Killer, the G20 was formed because of the 1999 financial meltdown, and again, it did so well in that period. It also functioned really well in 2008 global financial meltdown. Some have said it is better as an economic bloc. Perhaps it should redirect to that vision rather than trying to take on global problems. I want to get your thought on that.
Well, look, I believe that whatever happens, be it the meltdown, which is a negative thing, be it in terms of opportunity, it doesn't make sense at all to try to go solo in the world anymore. You have to think that when you do something and you put it on the website, you're open to the world. You're open to the world, to be praised, to be traded with, also to be criticized. So the way to think now is that one nation, one person is part of the whole world, and there's no way to escape that. So whether it's meltdown, whether it's opportunity, the way forward is global thinking, collaboration. Nothing outside that can work. It doesn't make sense.
Thank you so much for your time, as always. Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced Studies and Professional Studies, rather, and a leading political economist, Professor Kila. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
That's a word now. Thank you so much for watching. We're back here tomorrow at 3 p.m. for more international stories and analysis. I am Precious Amayu.